Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine just this massive, swirling engine of wind and rain churning over the ocean, and it's heading straight for land. If you're in Taiwan, that picture, that probably brings one thing straight to mind: typhoon season. So our deep dive today is really all about getting a handle on what that actually means. We're going to explore what happens when these powerful weather systems make their presence known, how life shifts in Taiwan during this time, the essential ways people prepare, and interestingly, some specific vocabulary that's actually key to understanding it all. Think of this as your guide, sort of to navigating the reality of typhoon season if you were there, drawing out the essential insights. I have to say, I'm genuinely fascinated by how a place that experiences such intense natural forces pretty regularly learns to live with them and prepare for them. There just seems to be this profound level of readiness, a kind of ingrained resilience that defines the season.
That resilience is absolutely central. You see, Taiwan's location geographically puts it smack bang in the Pacific's typhoon belt, which means, well, it's regularly in the path of these storms. Now, it's important to note, not every single typhoon is, a devastating event. Some might just pass by or they weaken considerably before they hit. But others bring really significant impacts. We're talking about the potential for damaging strong winds, torrential heavy rain that can dump huge amounts of water very, very quickly. And that leads to flooding. And in the mountainous areas, there's also the risk of landslides. So the information we're looking at really emphasizes this constant need for preparedness. It highlights the systems and, frankly, the habits Taiwan has developed to face this annual challenge.
Okay, so diving right in then, let's start with the most basic question. What exactly is a typhoon? We hear the word all the time, but what does it actually represent, scientifically speaking?
Well, at its core, a typhoon is a specific type of tropical cyclone. You can sort of think of it as a very large rotating storm system. What defines it are those really strong winds spinning around a low-pressure center combined with intense, heavy rain. These systems, they get their energy from warm ocean waters, specifically when the sea surface temperature is warm enough, typically above 26.5 degrees Celsius, which is around 80 Fahrenheit. And because they feed off this warmth, they form over the ocean. They tend to make their most significant impact when they hit coastal areas, especially in regions like East and Southeast Asia, and, well, that includes Taiwan.
And when does Taiwan typically experience this? Is it a year-round thing, or is there a more defined period we should know about?
Yeah, there's definitely a season. Based on the observed patterns and the information available, Taiwan's typhoon season generally falls between June and October. However, the period when the country is most likely to be impacted, the peak season that's usually concentrated between July and September. So while you need vigilance throughout the broader season, those late summer months are really when preparation and awareness become absolutely critical.
Okay, so we get what they are, and the main window when they're likely to show up. Let's pivot now from the sort of meteorological definition to the human reality. What does this actually mean for daily life in Taiwan when a typhoon is approaching, or when one is really bearing down? How does the rhythm of life change?
Oh, it changes pretty dramatically and pretty quickly, too, once a typhoon warning is officially issued. One of the most immediate and probably most widespread impacts is on public life and transportation. Schools and businesses often close. That's primarily to keep people safe and, frankly, off the roads. And this isn't just like small shops. It can include major offices, even factories.
Right, so the official message seems really clear then. Stay home if you possibly can.
Absolutely. The primary advice for residents is just to stay indoors once the weather starts to deteriorate. Yeah. And this has a ripple effect, a big one, on transportation. Flights are frequently canceled or severely delayed. Train services, especially the high-speed rail, might be suspended entirely or maybe run on a very limited schedule. Roads can become dangerous or sometimes even impassable due to water accumulation, flooding or debris like fallen trees and branches.
And beyond just the travel chaos, what about essential services, like electricity?
Yeah, power outages are a very real possibility. Those strong winds we talked about can bring down power lines easily, and the heavy rain can impact substations and other infrastructure. So preparing for potentially losing electricity is a really key part of that readiness mindset. It just underscores the importance of being self-sufficient, at least for a little while.
Speaking of self-sufficiency, what are those personal habits, the preparations that become almost standard practice for residents during this season?
Well, the information points to several key habits that seem to become pretty much second nature for folks there. Stocking up on essentials is paramount. That means making sure you have an adequate supply of drinking water, batteries for flashlights, radios, other devices, and non-perishable food items. Things that don't need cooking or refrigeration, like canned goods, dried foods, that sort of thing.
And charging devices sounds pretty critical too, right? Especially that potential for power loss.
Oh, absolutely vital. Making sure your phone and maybe any power banks you have are fully charged before the storm hits. That's crucial for staying connected and, importantly, informed. And like we touched on, the general principle is just avoid going out unless it's absolutely necessary, especially once the storm conditions really arrive.
You mentioned something earlier, kind of a cultural aspect, or maybe a specific phrase related to staying home during a typhoon. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Ah, yes. There's that interesting little detail about locals sometimes, sort of lightheartedly, referring to a day off that's granted because of a typhoon warning as a typhoon holiday. Now, it's really important to understand this is usually used in a slightly joking way, maybe when a warning is issued in places close, but the actual storm impact in their specific location isn't severe enough to pose immediate danger if you were, say, just stepping out quickly during a lull. It sort of reflects a bit of gallows humor, maybe, or just making the best of an unexpected day off when it is safe. But the serious side, which the information really emphasizes, is staying constantly informed. Being glued to news broadcasts or weather apps on your phone is a fundamental part of the routine during typhoon season. It's how people track the storm's path, understand the warning levels, and know when it's genuinely safe or unsafe to be out.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so let's try to make this really actionable for someone who might actually find themselves in Taiwan during this period. What are the absolute key safety tips, the must-dos to be prepared and ultimately stay safe?
Yeah, the safety advice is really designed to minimize risk, both inside your home and thinking about the environment outside. The very first step is securing your immediate environment. So that means closing and properly securing all your windows, maybe taping them if advised. Those strong winds can be incredibly powerful and unsecured windows can break, or they could allow debris to fly into your home.
Makes complete sense. Protect your home first. Step one.
Exactly. Then you need to anticipate those potential disruptions we mentioned, particularly power outages. So have flashlights ready to go and make sure you have plenty of extra batteries on hand. Relying just on your phone flashlight, probably not practical if you need light for an extended period.
And we talked about stocking up on food and water just now, but it feels like it's worth reiterating that as a key safety measure.
Definitely. It's critical. Having a supply of canned or dry food and enough clean water is vital if you can't go out, or if shops are closed, or if services are disrupted for maybe a day or two. Aim for enough for at least 24 to 48 hours just to be safe. And, as we noted, keeping your phone and any power banks fully charged ensures you can communicate if there's an emergency.
And during the storm itself, the
Right.
most straightforward advice is probably the best.
Stay inside. It might sound really obvious, but the conditions outside during a typhoon, that combination of high winds, heavy rain, potential flying debris, flash flooding it, just makes it incredibly dangerous. Avoid going out altogether while the storm is actively raging.
Okay, what about the risks posed by the natural environment around you? Are there specific things people need to watch out for depending on where they are?
Yes, absolutely. The information highlights the importance of environmental precautions. If you have things like potted plants, outdoor furniture, or really any loose objects on balconies or in your yard, move them inside, or at least secure them very firmly. You don't want them becoming projectiles in the strong winds, potentially causing damage or, worse, injury. And crucially, stay away from areas that are known to be vulnerable to typhoon impacts. This means avoiding hillsides, which are prone to landslides when the ground gets saturated by all that heavy rain. It also means staying well away from rivers or low-lying areas that are susceptible to rapid flooding. Understanding these localized risks is a really vital part of staying safe.
These are all incredibly practical, really important steps. And, understanding all the warnings and the advice you receive often relies on knowing some specific terminology, doesn't it?
That's very true. The language used when discussing typhoons, whether it's in the official alerts or news reports or even just, conversations with people preparing around you, it can be quite specific. Being familiar with these terms is really helpful for actually understanding the situation and knowing how you should react.
Right. So let's go through some of that key vocabulary that comes up frequently when discussing typhoon season based on the information we have. Knowing these words can make a big difference in feeling informed, I think.
Absolutely. It really cuts through the noise, doesn't it? It helps you understand exactly what's being communicated.
Okay, so the central term we've been using all along, the name for the storm itself, typhoon.
Right. A typhoon, defined as a strong tropical storm characterized by that heavy rain and very high winds. And you'll commonly hear it use something like this, according to the example. A typhoon is expected to hit the east coast of Taiwan this weekend.
Okay, that example gives you the key info, what it is and where it's heading. Next up, when the authorities need to get your attention about dangerous weather conditions.
That's when they issue a weather alert. This is basically a public notice, specifically designed to inform you about dangerous weather conditions that are developing or approaching your area. An example of this in action might be, the government issued a weather alert for strong winds and heavy rain, so it tells you the specific hazards to prepare for.
Got it. And being prepared relies on having your supplies ready, often gathered into one place. That collection, it has a specific name.
Yes, that's your emergency kit. This is just a collection of essential supplies, specifically put together for use during disasters or emergencies. The example provided is quite clear. Every household should have an emergency kit ready during typhoon season. Really highlights the importance of having those supplies organized beforehand.
Okay. And when the wind isn't just blowing steadily, but it hits you suddenly really powerfully.
That sudden burst, that's called a wind gust. It's defined as a sudden, strong increase in wind speed that lasts for only a short time. You might hear it described like this in a report. Wind gusts knocked down several trees during the typhoon. It shows the destructive potential even of those short bursts of wind.
Right. And if the storm gets severe enough to stop public services, like trains or flights.
That's referred to as a cancellation. This just means an event or service has been officially stopped or called off. The example given is, all train services were under cancellation due to the storm. It's a very clear signal that normal operations have stopped.
Okay. And when all that heavy rain overwhelms drainage systems or causes rivers to overflow their banks.
That leads to flooding. That's the term used when water covers land that is normally dry, often caused by excessive rain or overflowing rivers and lakes. You'll likely hear reports like, the heavy rain caused flooding in low-lying areas. This indicates where the water has accumulated and is causing problems.
And in hilly or mountainous areas, that heavy rain can have a different but equally dangerous effect.
That's the risk of a landslide. A landslide is a sudden, often rapid movement of a mass of rock, earth, or debris down a slope. The example provided illustrates this danger quite starkly. The typhoon caused a landslide near a mountain village. It really shows how the storm can trigger movement in unstable ground.
Wow, okay. And finally, one of the most common inconveniences, or even dangers, during a major storm is losing your electrical service.
That's known as a power outage. It's simply a period when the supply of electric power is interrupted. A typical example you might hear is, many homes experienced a power outage during the storm. This is often a pretty widespread consequence of typhoon damage to power lines or other infrastructure.
So yeah, having those terms in your vocabulary really does equip you better to understand the official warnings, the news reports, and just the general discussions happening around you when a typhoon is approaching or affecting Taiwan.
Absolutely. It translates the general idea of a storm is coming into specific, understandable information about the actual threats and the status of essential services. It's really a vital part of the communication infrastructure during these events.
Okay, so we've really journeyed through the essential aspects of Taiwan's typhoon season today. We've looked at what these powerful weather systems are, how they significantly impact daily life and transport, the crucial safety steps individuals need to take, and that key vocabulary that helps make sense of it all. It really does underscore that central theme we identified right at the beginning, preparedness and resilience.
Yeah.
They aren't just abstract concepts. They seem to be the lived reality of navigating typhoon season in Taiwan.
Yeah, and that preparedness isn't just a matter of individual action, is it? It seems built into the society, the infrastructure, the communication systems. The information makes it pretty clear that while typhoon season is definitely a serious annual event, Taiwan has developed some robust strategies to face it. Understanding the season, knowing what to expect, and actively taking those often simple preparation steps truly equips you to navigate life there safely during this time. It's quite a powerful illustration, actually, of how being informed and proactively preparing can mitigate the impact of even the most powerful natural forces. So yeah, stay safe, stay informed.
Definitely. So considering the annual arrival of such powerful natural forces like these typhoons and Taiwan's extensive preparations to meet them year after year, what does this consistent rhythm of natural challenge and societal readiness tell us about the fundamental relationship between human communities and the powerful, sometimes dangerous natural world they inhabit?